I know I'm scheduled to talk about how to raise capital, but the most important piece about raising capital, does anybody know what that is? Drop it in the chat. If you know what the number one thing is to raise capital, drop it in the chat right now. Let's see who knows what it is. Okay, everybody's got their cameras off and nobody's paying attention. This, Rachel, that's amazing. Knowing how to underwrite. That's a piece. There we go. Vanessa. Yes. Samantha. Building trust. Absolutely. Execution, Sonia. Absolutely. Trust. The number one thing to raising capital is creating powerful relationships with your investors, because there's no one going to give you any money without having a relationship with you. So with that, I want to talk today about the 7 elements of powerful creation, because every time we speak, every place we go, every person we meet, we are creating powerful conversations with our language, with the way we operate, the whole 9 yards. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. Let me know if that comes up on your screen, or you're getting both sides. I'm assuming you're getting both sides.
We're not seeing anything yet.
Oh, probably have to hit the share screen button. It's my first time presenting. I just want to throw that out there. I'm glad Tim's letting me do this for being on my first time. So we're going to start.
There we go.
There we are. And we're going to get rid of this little notch right here. So the 7 elements of powerful creation, I'm just going to give a rundown of what they are, and then we're going to go through them one by one. The very first thing anybody ever notices about you when you start to create with them is, are you authentic? That's the first thing. Second thing, you got to have faith in what you're doing. Number 3, you got to be personal. You have to have personal alignment. Number 4, you got to be committed to what you're doing. If you did not feel the commitment from Noel that was just on here, and Tim had to come in and just steal the microphone back, but Noel was so committed to what he was saying, he had no idea that the clock was running overtime. Not that I see a clock here, but his clock was running over. Number 5, integrity. And I'll get into integrity in just a moment. Number 6 is in your intentions. Number 7 is the language we use when we're having conversations. And we don't want to be sloppy. We don't want to be sloppy with our language. It's really easy to do a lot of and all this other. And I listened to a presentation earlier today on another Zoom, and the poor gentleman had an amazing product, but a horrible presentation. And everybody, when he got off, everybody was talking about how he presented, not what he presented. And at the end of the day, you don't want to be talking about how I presented. You want to be talking about what you learned because I presented it well. And I hope I do that now that I've already stepped out there and put myself out there. I hope I present well for you today. So the foundation of influence and creating is, hang on, I got to move this other, oops, I hit the wrong button. We're just going to jump right in. Number 1, authenticity. Be real, be you, because people connect with honesty, not perfection. They want to know this is truly you speaking to them. So being authentic actually produces a lot of power. It produces a feeling in the way somebody's receiving you. And you may wonder, why is this important in raising capital? Have you ever been to a car lot or someplace like that and tried to buy a car or have a conversation with the sales guy, and he's looking over here, thinking about this, he's checking his phone. He's not being authentic with you in that opportunity that you're presenting to him to take advantage of. So be authentic with your investors. And I'm going to save a little time at the end for Q&A, because this stuff is really important, and I want to make sure I'm covering it adequately for everybody. Number 2, faith. You got to have faith in what you're doing. You got to believe in I have $0 in the bank. That's our evidence. But we have to believe in the fact that we're going to have $2, $3, $4 million. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you don't see yourself doing it, you don't have it in your heart. And when you talk to your investor or your database or your friends or the person you're trying to pursue to put money into your opportunity, they're not going to feel it either. So you definitely want to make sure you're speaking with a ton of conviction. Faith and love and the way you present are some of the greatest forces a human can make. Personal alignment. Your message equals your values. Your message equals your values. So when you present a deal and you go, well, I like the complex, but it's not in the best neighborhood, but it's making a ton of money, but it needs paint. Some of the doors closed, but not all of them. Some of them locked, but not most of them. You better be in alignment personally and professionally with what you're presenting. And if that's not the right opportunity for you and you know that before you get started, sometimes it's better to pass because you want to be completely in alignment with what you're selling. You have to be, if you're not in alignment, are you even going to put your own money into the deal? Or are you just raising money to get paid for raising money? So if it goes against your calling or against the waves, you're going to drown in a sea of just a mess of where you're headed with this. Commitment. This is the big one. You got to walk the walk. You got to be consistent, even when you don't feel like it. The heaviest thing, and I've raised a little over $82 million so far. I haven't raised in the last really year and a half, but I did a little raise before Christmas this year. The hardest thing in capital raising is this phone that weighs about 8 to 10 ounces starts to feel like a 200-pound weight, and it's hard to get it up to your ear. The only reason that's going to do that to you is because you're not committed. You're not committed to your process. If you're committed to your team and you're committed to your process, picking up that phone, sharing your opportunity with your prospect will be the easiest thing you do. And once you get that one prospect to say, I'm in, I'm committed, I'm wiring you $50,000, I'm wiring you $100,000, I'm wiring you $500,000, that phone gets so much lighter. You're excited to pick up that phone. You're excited to share that opportunity with the world, with every single person and every single prospect you come into contact with. Integrity. And I can't see the chat from where I'm at, but I want you to, in the chat, if you've committed on January 1 to going to the gym any amount of days a week, committing to a diet, committing to no dry January, you committed to whatever you committed to and you didn't do it, just put a 1 in the chat. This isn't to call you out, but I'm gonna share with you about integrity. Integrity isn't just doing what you say you're going to do, it's doing everything you say you're going to do. If I said I was going to go to the gym, I better go, otherwise I'm out of integrity with me. You wouldn't know I'm out of integrity with myself because I didn't go to the gym 5 days a week, or I didn't have a dry January, or I didn't do all my workout or my squats or whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing. You wouldn't know that. But when you start to raise capital and your team is counting on you making those phone calls and bringing in that money that you committed to, and you're not making those phone calls, you're now out of integrity with your team. And that's a big deal, because your team that you joined is relying on you to produce the outcome you committed to. And so it goes back to the commitment side, but then these all go together. And if you start to think about your life as one big capital raise or one big pursuit of something, like when I was pursuing my wife or my daughter's husband was pursuing her, there wasn't anything we wouldn't do. We were authentic. We were faithful to the task. We were in alignment with what we were desired. We were committed to the process, and we had integrity in our relationships. So to say your word is your bond is very, very simple, but those words mean something, because without that, nothing that you build will last, because it'll all come tumbling down right around you. And that's not why we're here. We're all here to grow our real estate knowledge, our capital raising game, and understanding how to take a property from here to here and reward our investors for coming along with us. And the integrity doesn't stop when you're done raising the capital. You still have to manage the deal the way you say you're going to manage it. You have a business plan, like Noel was talking, you have your rent roll and you have your projections, and you provide that. And somebody even in the chat said the underwriting is the number one thing in capital raising. Well, the underwriting is important because it actually says where we're at and where we're heading. And now we have the roadmap. If we deviate from that roadmap and we don't correct it, we're out of integrity with our business plan. So integrity goes around so many different parts of your life, and it's integral to everything you do. Intention. What's our intention? Who am I serving? Number one, we're serving on, you can get these ones either direction. Number one, we serve our investors. Number two, we serve our tenants. And number three, we will be served. And you can get one and two either direction, that's fine. But if you put number three in front of either one of those, we are out of alignment with what we are here to do. If we can serve our tenants and we can serve our investors, the serving that will come back to us at the end of this is going to be monumental. Not only will you feel good, maybe even have a little extra cushion in your pocket in the form of cash flow, but you have to have the intention and understand who it is and what it is we're serving and why we're here. Your intention should always be centered on who you're serving and not being served. I did that when me and my wife had our ATM business. We served two clients. We served the person that bought the machine and installed it, and then we served the card holder. And when we got those two pieces correct, tons of cash flow came our direction, which has now put me in the position to be able to do these sorts of things and share back across a bunch of different networks. And I love being part of Tim's and serving and coaching and helping out where I can to bring people the things that I've learned along the way. And this one's probably should be number one, but I like authenticity because authenticity is the vibration of your body, and that's the number one thing people can feel is the authenticity. But our language, if we are loose with our language, it's hard to create powerful. It is absolutely impossible. Oh, we think we could do this, or we think, no, I can do that. Do you have anybody on your team says, I'm gonna try to raise $500,000. I'm gonna try to make it to the gym. I'm gonna try to get to the office. No, you're not gonna try. You got to the office. No, you got to the gym. No, you raised that money. Let's take try and some of those words that don't serve us, don't create powerful impact on people. Let's take those words out of our vocabulary, because the language we use shapes your outcome. And if you know what your outcome is, it's easier to work backwards towards that. The power to shape reality through spoken and written words is so important. It's not just a tool of communication, but it's a creative force. And that force creates more power for you. So that's sort of what I have. I have a QR code up here in the top right on my screen. If anybody would like to connect with me, it's got all my socials and all that stuff on there. happy to connect, private coaching sessions, anything you might be desiring and growing how you elevate yourself in this space. That's the whole reason Tim puts these things on, is he's just trying to create a community of like-minded people heading to the same goal. So I'm going to take down the share, and I'm going to open it up if it's okay with Tim. If you have any questions, let's drop those in the chat.
Yeah, and then do you have a way to put the link to the QR code, or either the QR code itself or the link inside the chat?
I will see if I can do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so if you guys have questions for Michael, go ahead and raise your hands. We'll call on you to unmute yourself. Yeah, it's, what you mentioned there about language. There's language that you say to others, and then there's language that you say to yourself, right? That you have to really, really watch. A lot of times, like, we're so hard on ourselves a lot of times, and so the language we say to ourselves is sometimes like the worst language, and so that is something that that you do have to watch a lot of, when it comes to language. I mean, all of those 7 elements, really, you got to really pay attention to those 7 elements, not just how you are with others and how you communicate with others, but how you are with yourself and how you communicate with yourself.
Yeah, this 6 inches of real estate right here, and we call it our mind, but if you don't have your mindset correct, it could cost you dearly. You could have a huge investor on the phone, and they feel you said the wrong word because you were loose with your language, and you just lost that investment on this opportunity. And the investors that I tend to attract, it can be very, very expensive, and it could cost me a big chunk of my raise. So it's always important to understand that your language is very, very important. And I put the link to the QR code in the chat if anybody wants to connect. Happy to do that offline or over the next couple weeks. Probably not today or tomorrow, because Tim's got 2 days of jam-packed information and people coming at you to just bring you a truckload of value. And that's what I love about this guy. He will give you the shirt off his back.
Thank you, Mike. All right. Vanessa, go ahead, unmute.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. First and foremost, thank you so much for your presentation. I genuinely loved it. Love everything that it focused on. And my question is, I have been learning about real estate for quite a few years now, but I'm still pretty young. I just turned 20. So I'm doing my first race right now. Thankfully, I have been given the opportunity to race for a deal right now. And I was wondering if you had any sort of advice a little bit tailored to that situation, primarily because I'm no longer gonna say that, oh, I have social anxiety, because I'm trying to push through it. Same thing with the language thing. But yeah, I still get really nervous with people in general. So if you have any advice on that context, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're doing it right now. Whether you believe it or not, you are on stage in front of 52 other people, and you are not having any. Don't do that. You're fine. Sit up. You're doing an amazing job right now. You are the only one that's raised your hand. You see that? 52 other people here. You're the only one that raised your hand. You had the question. You're stepping out, and you're stepping forward, and you're leaning in. So remember that every time you go to one of your investors or your prospects, that I'm here because I have something of value that I think you might want. The biggest thing that people always ask me, how do you ask an investor for money? And if you ask anybody that's had coaching sessions with me or anybody that I've spoke to, I never ask people for money. I share my experience of how real estate's worked for me, and then I share the opportunity that's in front of me. And I just say, if you would like to come along for the ride, we have a little bit of space left. But you sort of have to guide them, but you don't have to ask. You just have to share. And yes, you're newer. Like I heard you say that you're newer, but I wouldn't tell anybody that. What I would do is like, I'm on a team, and I mean, there's a lady on here today. She's coming up next. She's next. She's next up on here. She gave me my first opportunity on my very first raise. The lady that's coming up next. And you know how much I'd raised before then? 0. And she put it on my back to raise $5.5 million. She raised $1 million. I raised the other five and change. And she put that on me. She came to me and said, hey, I would like you to be on my team, and I'd like you to help me raise. And once we both committed to each other, and I had a commitment, I literally walked across the hall to my wife's office and said, we're getting married. We have a commitment to Sandia. She's coming up next. I can say her name. And I went out and I raised that. I literally got on this thing and started texting people and video texting. And I really started to create some momentum way before we even got to the point where we had a webinar and we're raising. But when you have that commitment, it doesn't matter what it takes. It takes whatever it takes to get it done. How long does it take to raise $5.5 million? However long it takes. I can't tell you it's going to happen in 2 days or 5 days like it did for us. But you have to go out there and know that it's there and it's coming. Literally, this group that I raised for towards the end of the year brought me an opportunity in January. They called me like 3rd or 4th day of January. Said, hey, I have this opportunity. Do you want to jump in? And I have a grandson coming. I'm not going to do that. They raised almost $18 million in 2 days. They're overfunded. Look at that. Celebration. They're overfunded. So I hope I helped you there, but you got to lean in. Keep attending these conferences and attend anything you can get where you could get your opportunity in front of others. If it's a 506C, get it in front of as many people. But if it's 506B, keep it in front of the people you already have a relationship with. I'm not an attorney. Consult with them before you take my advice on that. And we have one more question from Aaron, and then I think I'm going to turn it back over to Tim, if that's okay.
Yep. Thanks, Vanessa.
Hey, Michael. Well, you said that kind of number 7 language, you kind of wanted to put it first, but being authentic is really kind of first thing too. And so one thing I wanted to ask you is, sometimes, like, I think maybe all of us have gone through this where we wonder, am I gonna say the right thing before we even get into it? And then when we're into it, we're wondering, am I saying the right thing? And then when we're done, we overthink ourselves and say, did I say the wrong thing? So how do you overcome that?
Repetition. The more you do it, the more you'll understand what somebody's looking for and what they want to hear. Like 2/3 of your audience wants to talk about the sizzle of the deal, how well it's going to perform, what's my IRR, what's my cash on cash, how much money are we raising, what kind of funds are you as a general partnership putting in. They're going to ask you those sorts of questions. That's like sizzle. The other third of the audience is going to want to understand the underwriting and go through that. So you need to understand both pieces so that when you're presenting it, you know what you're presenting. But I always try to present a little bit to both sides because I have to speak to both sides because I want to get money into the opportunity from both sides. So you may, and I do too. I mean, my wife's on here, and she'll tell you, you shouldn't have said that. You should have done this. I met a guy last night at an event. I gave him my card. He was leaving. I didn't get his information. I should have probably gotten his information, but I didn't do it but I did it the way I do it. And for whatever reasons, it works for me. But you are going to connect in your own authentic way with people unless you say something astronomically wrong. You're still probably going to get their investment. It's hard to say 1 or 2 words is going to screw everything up because it won't. They either know, like, and trust you, or they don't. And if they know, like, and trust you, they're going to give you a little bit of runway and leeway with your presentation, with your response. Like the gentleman that was on this morning on this other thing, and he had a horrible presentation. He had a raving fan in the room when that guy left that spoke. This is like his 7th deal. He's not a presenter. He is a deal junkie, and this is what he does. All of a sudden, he's got third-party recognition from somebody I have no idea about, but now I'm more interested in the deal. Because it came from somebody I know that knows the guy, that understands what he's done. But at no point in time before did he say, this is my seventh deal, this is the kind of returns I've given, this is how we've seen it go over the past. I mean, it was a 50-50 split at the end of the day between LPs and GPs. I would never say yes, but I might, just because he's done such a good job. If he does a good job being 2x my money, only giving me 50% of the upside, good for him. His track record speaks for himself, but he didn't speak about his track record. I could have taken his deck and did the presentation, but that's not what happened. He presented in his own way. So sometimes it's not what you say, or not how you say it, it's what you say, or sometimes it's what you say, not how you say it. But I don't think if people really know, like, and trust you and believe in you, that a couple words is going to make a difference. And mindset. We are committed to the outcome. And if it's not that one investor, it's the next. And if it's not that one, it's the next. So that's where I'm at with this. I hope that helps.
Very good. Awesome. All right. Well, Aaron, you got, yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Aaron, for asking that question. Mike, thank you so much for being on here today. Samantha, thank you as well. I know you didn't get on the camera, but you were in the chat, supporting in the chat. Thank you so much, Samantha. And yeah, I really appreciate you, Mike. Always. You're such a generous human being, always out to give, and always so freely sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. So I really appreciate you for coming on with us today.
Absolutely. And just for Dimitri, I'm going to respond real quick. The biggest mistake you make is stopping raising capital. Like when the interest rates went up and transactions went down, I probably should have started raising a fund, because the more you're in front of people and the more you get out there and do it, you have to continue to raise capital always, in all ways. I know I'm scheduled to talk about how to raise capital, but the most important piece about raising capital, does anybody know what that is? Drop it in the chat. If you know what the number one thing is to raise capital.